And then you get in the Pro 4 and it's like, hey, 100% all out war battle UFC fight. Like, hey, what's up? I'm Bryce Menzies. We're here at Menzies Motorsports. I race the number 7 trophy truck for Red Bull, AMSOIL, Toyota Tires, and Menzies Motorsports. So I started racing short course 2007. I raced dirt bikes my whole life leading up to when I was like 20 and just got hurt a bunch and realized I wasn't going to go be the next Jeremy McGrath or something like that. So it's finally time to hang it up. And my dad's like, hey, let's build a 1600 car for short course. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know anything about desert racing, nothing. I only knew motocross. And so our friend Bruce Fraley, who preps our sand car at the time, built off-road cars. So my dad's like, hey, how much is this car gonna cost? Okay, let's build a car. Well, it takes a little longer than expected. We're literally pull up. This is how we show up to our first race. We show up to get the race car in a F-250 with a flatbed trailer, no tools, we don't know anything about it. Show up, as they're loading the car, they're still welding the frame. And I never drove the car until we show up to Lancaster, California. Was the first core race I ever did in 2007. We show up and I'm terrified, have no idea, never even driven the car. I barely know how to drive stick shift. And so we get in it. First race, I think I got like 13th. Got a little comfortable with the car. And then the next day, I started out front because it was a invert. So I start out front, fully terrified, end up leading the whole race, win the race, second ever short course race, win the race. And on the podium, I still remember this day, they're asking me, they're like, so what was your spotter saying during the race? And I to this day, I remember looking and going, what's a spotter? Like, we had no idea. And they're all like, what? You're supposed to have a spotter in the stand telling you like corners, laps. We didn't know that, so I just drove. So I had no idea. So how naive and young we were in the sport. And that's what kind of set the whole tone for my short course career. Like I said, my dad, no matter what, he saw that and he's like, do you want to go down this avenue? And I was fully committed. So we went all in, 2007, 2008, all into short course. We hired Rob McCachran to be like a coach driver, also race a Pro 2. We had Brian Freeman, Larry Jobe. So we had like a super team and really helped my career grow up. So that was like the first race that kind of got me into it. And then I would say the next one that stands out is my first Pro 2 championship. It was a battle with Rob McCachran, which is he was on a different team. And it's crazy starting from him kind of coaching me and helping me out to now I'm racing the champion, the legend of short course off-road, Rob McCachran, for a championship. And it's crazy how all this came to and worked itself. And I had to win Texas to beat Rob in the championship. So we're going in. It's one of those fierce battles where we were fully committed at this time, all in, all for the goal. And this is 2011. And I remember Texas was extremely hard packed, slippery. It rained. We lost a motor in qualifying and we brought a spare motor that was just pieces because the race before in Charlotte, we burnt the motor down. So we threw this, we call it Frankenstein is the motor. Still, we have it on the shelf in the back shop because it raced 3 times and never lost a race. So we call it Frankenstein. It was pieces of a bunch of other motors thrown together to be able to make it to this race. And I'm like, man, we're going in. We got less power. We're going against Rob McCachran. Dude, this is going to be so tough. And I remember on the start line, my crew chief at the time, spotter, Charlie Schlevy's like, hey, we're never out of this fight until it's over. And it started getting dry slick, and actually the power, being less power, actually helped me because I got more traction and ended up winning the race, beating Rob by I think it was 1 point for the championship. So one of those most insane moments of like having your icon teach you, and then being able to like grow up, get to that level and beat them, and just going through all that adversity. So that short course, from like winning my first ever single buggy race, having no idea what I'm doing, to it took 3 years to get to the Pro 2 point of win a championship. So it's a lot of work that went in those 3 years, and those two stories I'll remember forever. You know, it's been 12 years of racing, and those ones stick out like really good. So at first I raced Pro 2 for 4 years leading up, and we always had a guy drive Pro 4 for us, Ricky Johnson. And finally it was the time to step in and drive both trucks, and that was extremely hard going from Pro 2 to Pro 4, because one is, I say it's like a ballet dance. Like, you have to be, the Pro 2, you have to be so precise, throttle control. You have 900 horsepower and 35-inch tires, and you got to keep them not spinning. Very tough. And then you get in the Pro 4, and it's like, hey, 100% all-out war battle UFC fight. Like, drive it into the corner as hard as you can, stab the brake, throw the thing sideways, right back to the gas. And it was like complete opposites. And that was, it was tough. At first, I loved racing Pro 2 because of how precise you had to be, and how finesse on the gas. You had to be, you know, so smooth with your driving control to win those races. And I really liked that. I really liked to go from track to track, figure out by your foot. My foot managed every race. So getting into the Pro 4, I was like, you know, I really like the Pro 2, how I get to, you know, manage it, work on my driving skills. And then I started racing the Pro 4, and just the adrenaline and chaos inside of Pro 4 is, there's nothing like it. Every year I go back to Crandon, once a year. I raced short course for 10 years, and now we only race one race, and it's Crandon, because of how insane that race is in a Pro 4. The crowd, you're going through turn 1 at 105 miles an hour with 10 trucks side by side, and then throwing the truck completely backwards 100 yards before the corner. So it's one of those vehicles where I get in once a year, and I literally take about 3 laps, do it, and I get out, and I'm just like shaking because of the adrenaline. And I'm like, I just felt like I got done with a Baja 500, and I did 3 laps in my Pro 4. That's how much the difference is of how intense a short course truck is compared to like in the desert of just relaxed, smooth, and that one's just violent, on the gas all the time, 10 laps, fully sweating, smoked, and you can get out of a truck at a Baja 500 and be like, you know, drink a sip and be okay. So it just shows the chaos and wildness of short course, and the difference between all the trucks.
Every time we climb in our cars and pull our belts tight, new memories and stories are created. We are on a mission to bring these stories to light, both for our community and for those outside off-road to understand the allure. So please help us in sharing these stories.